welcome to this episode of the Blog Chronicles. I am your host, Matthew Loomis. This show is sponsored by buildyourownblog.net, the full-service destination for people who want to start their own WordPress blog and achieve long-term success. Visit buildyourownblog.net to start your new blog today. My guest is a professional blogger and entrepreneur who runs her own online business called Kotaw, a Los Angeles-based creative digital agency. She's a former journalist who uses 3 types of storytelling to make branding magic for businesses like Apple, Disney, Coca-Cola, Lifetime, and NPR. Her branding journalism and public relations clients have been featured on E! Network, ABC News, Cosmopolitan, Marie Claire, and Good Housekeeping magazines. She has also written a best-selling memoir about her terrifying experiences with an ex-husband that was made into a Lifetime Network movie. Okay, let's get our chronicles on with blogger Katherine Kotaw. Hi, Katherine. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
So you have reached a place in life that many people want. You've started a web-based business, and you're your own boss. And I want to start right here. Do you have a home-based office?
Yes, I do.
Great. What do you enjoy the most about being your own boss?
That I can work whatever 100 hours a week I want. Really, it gives me flexibility. I love what I do. I've always loved what I've done, but it gives me the chance to organize my life the way I want to. Sometimes I write best at 4 a.m, and I don't have to go any place to do it. Sometimes I want to take time off to do something with my daughters or just walk the dog, and I can do that whenever I want to. So it gives me, it's terrific responsibility, but for me it's really been about the flexibility of choosing what I do and when I want to do it.
Yeah, flexibility. It's great. What would you say your biggest challenges are when it comes to being your own boss?
Being too hard of a boss.
Too hard on yourself?
Yes, I wouldn't want to be my own employee, I think, although the people I work with I tend to be very flexible with, but in terms of me, I tend to be very hard on myself. And it can be 11 o'clock at night and I still think, oh my God, I should do something, because there's still something I want to do. But I'm driven by creativity, and when I'm excited about something, that's really what drives me. It's not so much stress about I have to please this client or, life is going to turn around if I don't do this. But when I'm passionate about what I do, I think about it 24/7. So, if I can't sleep, I get up and I write about it, or I get up and think about it and strategize. So the biggest challenge for me is telling myself to stop. And that sometimes the best work really comes when you do stop. So, I insist that I take walks. I insist that I go to the park. I insist that I eat, because sometimes those are the kinds of things that I will let go of if I'm not strict about myself.
Yeah, I think I have the same challenges because it's all right here at our house. So yeah, we're tempted.
Yes, it's not you. When you leave the office, you can't reach, those things in your desk, and you don't have the phone number or whatever. But when it's right here, it's just all I have to do, is pick up the laptop or walk 2 feet.
Yeah, I just remember too when it comes to you talk about going for walks and getting away from things. Aren't you a dog lover?
Yes, I have 2 dogs and a cat, all 3 of whom chose to live here. They wandered into our house one at a time.
They were looking for Katherine Kotaw, huh?
Yes, they were. And the beacon says, come and you shall be welcome.
Yeah, great. I've seen that on your website. One of them is a pit bull. Is that right?
Yes.
Those are great breeds. Yeah, I think you advocate for the breed, right?
Yes, advocate strongly. My daughters champion it more than I do. It's sort of a separation of responsibilities. But yes, one of the things when I decided to open Kotaw and to build our brand was to have a brand that meant something to me as well as it meant to clients. And what we thought about, well, is that if we could brand pit bulls as sweet and lovable, we can brand anybody because they've been such a disparaged breed.
Mm.
And so that has been a passion project of ours. And anytime I take on a project, if I'm not sure about, sometimes I weigh it on that basis. How passionate can I be about this project? And it's going to be hard to find one that makes me as passionate as pit bulls in terms of reshaping their personality. But some of them come close. And when they come close, I'm in love with the project and all goes well.
Yeah. Now, do you have a separate website for your dog advocacy?
No, it's a separate tab on the website. It's
Okay.
Yeah, it's tied together because we wanted it to be part of our brand. It was a bit of a risk starting out as a new company, putting that up there right away because there is a oh my God reaction to pit bulls. But it was important to me, so I said we can do it, and the response has been incredible. Almost every single day somebody sends me a picture of a pit bull, a video of a pit bull, something they've heard about pit bulls. I thought you'd want to hear about this, Katherine. So I know it's working, not just in terms of my own brand, but it's also, it's helping a breed that needs help.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting how you took one of your personal passions and incorporated it into your business brand.
Yes, and to me that's always been important, and it's one of the reasons why I do personal branding as well as corporate branding, because I've always felt that they've been intertwined, because corporations are made of people. And there's sort of a myth that if you are a corporation, even if you're a home-based entrepreneur and it's just you, we have a tendency to think that we have to act corporate. And so what we sometimes do is act incredibly impersonal, and nobody is particularly interested in us. If you're building an online business, it's really hard to find something that no one has ever done before. You put it out there, and whether you're writing a blog, whether you're selling shoes, whether have some kind of new dentist, teeth whitening strips, chances are somebody else is doing it. Probably hundreds, maybe thousands of other people are doing that same thing. And what distinguishes your brand is what you bring to it personally.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference. And some of the major corporations are starting to learn that and embrace it a bit. The obvious example comes to mind, is Steve Jobs. Who was Apple? He was Apple, and the company has struggled some in his absence. So all of the complaints about the new iPhone, part of it were some technical things, but part of it is it didn't have his touch. So we were more critical. There may have been things about other iPhones that we didn't like so much, but oh my God, it came from Steve Jobs, so it had to be great because he was great. He brought that to the brand, and I think it's important, and it's what I wanted to do from the beginning. That there had to be a Katherine Kotaw brand as well as a Kotaw brand.
Yeah, and his personality had a way also of, I don't know, turning situations like that into gold.
Of course, because he would own it. It would almost be like, thank you for telling me this, because now we can immediately go out and fix it. It's, the response after, this last one was kind of to pull back and to sort of hide from this mistake. And he never would have. He would have been on top of it. He would have talked about, that's what Apple is all about, is being responsive, is innovating based on what our customers need and want. And internally, he may have been making things, living hell for the people there. But in terms of his personality to the public, it was going to be reassuring, inspiring, and wow, we're on top of this. This is what we do. And absent of that, they had a tough time with this release.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a great example of personal branding.
Yes.
So let's go back to your personal brand. And another aspect I want to ask you about is you run your business with your two daughters.
Yes.
Is this something that's challenging at times as a family business?
It can be. And when I started Coda, I did not expect my daughters to be interested.
Mm-hmm.
They both had other passions, and they were sort of, helping mom get started,
Hmm.
because doing everything, is tough. I didn't have 18 hours a day to spend on social media, starting out, and also to be pursuing clients and pleasing clients and doing all those things. So basically, they said, well, what kind of help? And then
Kind of
they
help.
felt, yeah. And then as it turns out, they were spending, 12-hour days, 14-hour days, and I still considered it helping, and they sort of did too, until they sat me down one day and said, we want to be part of the business. And I said, really? It seemed that, as much as I knew they had all of these talents that would be great for Coda, I always thought that their passions led elsewhere. So when they said, we want to do this, I said, you sure? I know you'd be great assets. And they go, yep, we're in. It was wonderful. And yet there are challenges, partly because I'm used to being the one and only for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Although Coda was new, I've been an entrepreneur for probably 20 years. And there was no one to be, no one to be involved with what I was doing, to check to say, have you got this done on time, to kind of play back and forth. So there was a bit of a challenge. But what I do know is one of the things you really want to know about people who are working with you or for you is what are their strengths and weaknesses. And as a mother, I really do know them. So that helps. That's the other flip side of it, is that I know, for instance, that Kelsey, my younger daughter, is a really, really night owl. I mean, she makes me think like, I could go to bed at 8 o'clock. If I get up at 4 a.m, she's probably there working. And you can play to that, rather than saying, okay, you're going to start at 9 o'clock every morning and leave at 6. If I know she's doing her best work at 4 a.m, go for it.
Right.
We fill in around it. So that's the beauty of it. One is that it's also, since we're all excited about it, it's something we talk about when we're walking the dogs, when, we're interrupting the TV show, stopping, wait, I have this idea. So it's really handy in terms of collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
But if we didn't get along so well, it would be more of a challenge, because there are times when, one person's stressed, there's a client who's not happy, and it's always up to me to talk to the client, but it's up to me to tell, one of my daughters why the client isn't happy. And that's a little tough, when you're both a mother and, the CEO. But we're fortunate in that, we've always been close. We talk things through. And, if one of us is a little miffed, 5 minutes later, we're okay.
It sounds like you're all at the same residence, too.
Yes, we are. So it really is a 24/7 business, because we're all here together.
Do you ever have to tell them, okay, you need to take a break or you need to step away?
Oh, yes.
Mm.
Probably, and some parts of almost every day. It's getting a little easier, but I guess I've sort of given the example of being driven, and being an overachiever, and just wanting to really pursue and make things, great.
Mm-hmm.
And as wonderful as as an attribute that is, it's also, you've got to stop. And so the good thing is that in telling them to stop, I've learned some more about telling myself to do it as well. But there are times when, wait a second, we have to eat, we have to sort of pretend that, we have lunch breaks and we have dinner breaks and we have days off. So, yeah, I do have to tell them because they tend to follow mom's lead in thinking, well, there's just one more thing I could do.
Yeah.
And there are times when, the house is just silent and if I walk out, to the other room, they're both just, lightning fingers, on the laptops. And I'll say hi and they don't respond because they're that intensely focused. But because we have dogs, that always helps, who always need to be walked and who think it's fun to go to the beach sometimes and fun to go to the faraway park sometimes. We do take some kind of long breaks during the day so that even though we may work on Saturday and Sunday, for instance, on Monday, coming up, we're probably going to spend most of the day at the beach. So that's a luxury that we also get to do.
Yeah, that's a luxury you California folks get.
That's true.
Must be nice.
Yes, it wasn't a luxury when we lived in Canada. It was all we could, shovel snow on our break.
Right. I'm in Missouri, so I get snow and hot weather. So, but no beaches, no mountains.
Yes, and I get to look at both, so I'm really blessed.
Yeah, you really are blessed. That's great. So, for someone that's wanting to start a home-based, family-oriented business, what would be your biggest tip for them?
One would be to sit down and talk about it before you begin. Don't let yourself just fall into it being a family business because you have to treat it as a business.
Mm-hmm.
The separation, and we really sort of did fall into it, and I'm probably suggesting that you do it a different way, in that it can be easy to just say, oh well, it's my kid, so if there's a little slack, it's okay. Or if it's my kid, I have to be really, really hard on this person because, it's going to reflect on me. And you have to sort of do the separation of church and state and just sit down and talk about it. And because otherwise, the risk is, it's one thing for a business to fail. It's disaster for a family to fail. And you're putting both at risk. And at the end of the day, if you have to choose one, choose family.
Wow, that's good stuff. So before I go on to a new topic, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Are you saying Kotaw?
Yes, you got it. It's like Dakota without the da in front of it.
Okay, it's not Kotaw, it's Kotaw.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Well, Katherine, now I want to get into the topic of blogging, and I want to start in the area of blog commenting because that's where I discovered Katherine Kotaw. And I started following you on social and grew to enjoy your branding and the content that you produced. The blog where I met you in the comments section was Copy Blogger. And what captured my attention that day was you got into a discussion, we'll call it a debate, and it did get a little contentious between you and Brian Clark, the founder of Copy Blogger. And what caught my attention was how you were able to stand your ground, and you made a great case in your opinions. I don't even recall exactly what you two were talking about, but do you recall this?
I recall it. I don't remember precisely what we were talking about. I actually don't. It was, I don't remember the discussion, but go ahead.
Okay, well, I was just curious, did anything interesting happen from that experience?
Yes, I did get I got a lot of followers on my own blog because of it.
Mm-hmm.
I got recognition among, some of the influencers
Mm-hmm.
because that blog is so well read.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I gained sort of I think a bit of a new respect because among people at the time. Kotaw was still very young.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, but Kotaw was. Um, and people weren't really used to seeing that kind of discussion there in
Mm-hmm.
that forum.
Yeah, it really stood out from the great job, great post.
Yes, and 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 that's one of the things, and I would recommend to any bloggers or really anyone starting a business, is that if you're going to comment, and I think it's terrific to comment, is to be interesting.
Yeah.
That's just so crucial. And I've engaged in Twitter discussions, with celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
I've had great discussions with people on the New York Times, on Forbes, and it really is being interesting.
Yeah.
No, the great job, or patting somebody on the back, or oh, you're wonderful, or nobody remembers.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have an opinion that's different than the writer, as long as you're respectful, as
Mm-hmm.
long as you can support what your statement is. And if you have the confidence, it can really be helpful to be a little bit, in your face, as long as it's a respectful in your face.
Yeah, and you were being respectful.
Yes, and when I saw it, my intention was not, oh wow, I'm going to get a lot of great stuff out of this. It was just, no, I think you're wrong about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the backing to say it. And of course, that was some of the argument, is that, I looked at your website, and it's a year old, and he wanted to kind of put down my credentials, which was actually an opportunity for me to really support my credentials, which go back, at least as far as he do, his own do.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you are challenged, and personally, I was delighted, that he got into it with me, because it was terrific for me. It was not my intent, but I certainly wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to have that kind of discourse with someone who was so well known, and to just demonstrate, that I can hold my own. I have opinions. They're well-founded opinions. I respect yours, but you know what? This is a blog, and there are comments here. Respect those who come to your space. Which also, by the way, I had something to say when he closed the comments down.
Oh yeah, I did too. And it's interesting that they've come full circle and now they're back.
Yep. Yeah. So at least I listened, but it was, yeah.
Right. I think comments can benefit the reader and add more value to the post.
Oh, it brings so much attention to your blog. People look at those comments,
Oh yeah.
Almost no publication I read, I go to the comments. Sometimes I go to the comments before I go to the actual article or blog post.
Mm-hmm.
Those are important. And if I see somebody who has something interesting to say in those comments, I want to comment back. I want to sometimes take another look at the blog because maybe I missed the point they were trying to make. It has tremendous value. And never be afraid of people leaving negative comments. The only time I've ever removed a comment on the Kotaw blog is when it was hateful.
Right.
I have no tolerance for hateful comments about me or anybody in the universe, animals, dogs, anybody. I guess animals are dogs. It's a mistake. But I treat mine like people. That I just won't allow. And I make that a straight point. But anything, you want to disagree with me, you want to talk about anything, fine, thank you. That's the whole point of being a blog, is to invite discussion.
Right. I think some people have a hard time understanding that disagreeing doesn't mean you're a troll.
No.
Yeah. I mean,
Disagree means that you thoroughly read the article. In most cases, if you have a thoughtful opinion, it meant you cared enough to
right.
take the time to write something instead of just yay or nay. You want those people because those people are invested, because they're going to remember you the next time you write something. They're going to come back and say, can we have, this argument again, or can we have this thoughtful discussion again, or can we make each other laugh again? Whatever happened in the first one, people will want to repeat that experience.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you're still leaving blog comments today.
Oh, absolutely. I wish I had more time for it. I would probably do it night and day.
Yeah, right.
I really enjoy it. But I always make a point. And sometimes it is just to let a writer know, wow, I'm impressed.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to be remembered, you make a specific point about why you're impressed.
Right.
If it really is a great job, this particular line you said was what really struck me.
Yeah.
Because it means something to a writer. Having, started out and being at the core writer, I know how much it means to me if somebody remembers my words.
Yes.
So if you are using comment as a way to get remembered, quote the author. That it's not that hard to do. Cut and paste and say, this is the one thing that really stood out to me.
Mm-hmm.
That writer is going to remember you. And it does not matter if it's the New York Times or if it's in Sally Sue's blog.
Mm-hmm.
Writers remember.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm making a note here to maybe have you back sometime to talk some more about blog commenting, because I think we could do a whole show about it.
Oh, that would be fun. I would love that. Yes.
Okay.
That would be terrific.
Yeah, great. So let's now talk about storytelling, because I know quite clearly on your website, with your blog and your copy, that you do appreciate the power of storytelling. In fact, you help online businesses tell stories. So for someone who wants to build an online following with their blog and potentially monetize their message, why do you recommend storytelling so much?
Because people love stories. People can forget facts, they can forget issues, but stories resonate. And it really is what distinguishes you from everybody else. Because if you're sitting there with a blog and, there are tens of thousands of other people who want to write a blog, and let's say you're passionate about tulips, okay? And if you just write about, what tulips are like and how you grow them and the best color arrangements, there's only so many ways you can write those blogs. The topic matter of tulips is pretty limited. But to tell stories about tulips, about the first time you ever saw a tulip in a garden, the reason why you chose tulips in your wedding bouquet, the way you taught your daughter colors was to bring your daughter to a garden full of multicolored tulips, and she learned the difference between purple and red by looking at tulips. Those are stories that people remember. And if you don't have those stories, if you're not that passionate about tulips, why are you writing about it in the first place? Because if all you want to do is talk about how to care for tulips, how to, buy tulips, all of those things, look on the web and see how many people are already doing that.
Right.
Why should they come for you? Because your love for tulips is told through stories, and the stories will be remembered.
And it's the personal stories that separate us, distinguish us. Yeah.
Yes, it's what happened to you. Do you get teary? When you look at a tulip, Is it, you pick a fresh one every single day, and it's something that's in your desk and you look at it all day long? Those personal stories resonate. We remember those things. It's for some cultures, the Native American culture, for instance, comes from that storytelling background, and and the Irish, and so I'm mostly Irish and a little bit Indian, so I think storytelling is sort of in my genes. But there's a reason why they carry, and the reason why people want to preserve them is because it's personal. When we get to know you on your blog, we want to come back. If we're just getting facts and information on your blog, not so much.
Right. But Katherine, some new bloggers don't feel like they're good storytellers for whatever reason. What advice do you have for someone who feels inadequate about storytelling?
Most people don't recognize their own storytelling ability. Now, I'm not going to say that everyone's a gifted storyteller, but if all of us didn't have the ability to tell stories, we probably wouldn't have many conversations in our life. So just go back, you come home from work and somebody says, how was your day? Chances are you have a story about what it was like being stuck in traffic, what some idiot in line at Starbucks, was talking about. You have those, they come to mind.
Right.
What we tend to do is shut down when we think we're writing a story for a business purpose. And that's the failing. I've got to be serious now. I've got to just stick to the facts. I've got to just talk about, statistics and all those things. And that's not what brings people back. It's not what's going to make your money for you. It's bringing your stories, and you do have them in you. Sometimes, when I talk about quotas, we tell the undersold stories, because companies don't usually know what their story is. If I sit down and talk to them for a half hour, I find it. It's there. Why did you start this business? What gets you up in the morning? They're there. You just have to, you sort of have to get out of that. I don't know if it comes from schooling, when you're sort of told to do a book report or a research paper, and you think that the more serious and detailed and fact-oriented you are, the more powerful paper it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think, our high school English teachers do us a real disservice.
Right.
By training us to only think in those terms.
Yeah.
But what's really going to engage us, get us jobs, get us money for our blogs, get us clients, is the ability to tell a story. And we all have them, because we all talk to people all day long.
Yeah, I like how you keep bringing up how people seem to, when they hear the word business, their brains kind of go serious. You, on the other hand, with Kotaw content marketing, you don't shy away from offering and creating witty or humorous content for your clients.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that on your website. When is it a good idea to use humor in your content, and when is it not?
It's almost always helpful. There are some topics that are too serious. You're not going to, make laughs about child abuse, for instance. You're probably not going to make too many jokes about global warming. However, in each of those, even in those very serious topics, if you can find traces of humor, it draws people in. Because child abuse, for instance, that's a horrible topic. And if you don't find something light, even in a topic that serious, people are going to look away because it's too painful.
Hmm.
So if you can find a gentle story, a humorous story, it helps. For anything else, a touch of humor just it, it makes the business likable. If you can make a person laugh, you've made a friend.
So, how important is knowing your audience when it comes to humor?
Critical, absolutely critical. And that's one of the things that you should think about before you write the first word of your blog, before you try to get any clients for your business. And it's one of the problems that small businesses really have when, I get an inquiry, about somebody who wants me to help them brand personally or the corporate. And I'll say, well, who's your audience? 9 times out of 10, I hear silence at the other end.
Hmm.
And I say, well, okay, we have to back up here because I can't tell you how to brand your business. I can't tell you, blog ideas or strategy or content marketing if you don't know your audience. Because if you're just talking to the universe, you might as well be talking to nobody. You have to narrow it down. So you really have to think about who wants to hear this, who wants to buy this, who wants this service. You have to think that through. It can involve research, and sometimes it involves soul searching. It involves creative thinking. But if you don't know your audience, shut up.
Right.
There's no reason to talk because you're really just talking to air.
And you're even risking just blowing them out of the water.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, whether let's say they know their audience,
Hmm.
with or without humor, I just want to touch on or get an overview of your content marketing process. What should they do first, like a brand or a solopreneur who is ready to start using their blog? What should they do first?
Well, once they've determined their audience and they sort of determined the tone they want to take, two things should happen. One is that they want to do a little bit of experimenting because for all that you plan and all that you strategize about, you don't really know how people are going to react to your blog until you start writing it. So don't just start out to be, well, I've got to be funny every day, because your audience may not react to humor, or you may run out of humor. Not everything is going to be humor, funny to you, or the topic isn't going to be funny. But once you're ready to write, the biggest thing to do is to write about something small.
Hmm.
It's tell a small story really well rather than a big story not so well.
Hmm.
The smaller you make the story, ironically, the more detail and interest you're going to bring from it. If somebody asks you to, what was your life like?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to talk, well, I graduated, in this year, and I had a couple of kids, and I had a couple of businesses, and it's all kind of the same.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody asks you, what did you do Tuesday afternoon?
Mm-hmm.
You can bring that to life.
Yeah.
So choose small topics and really provide the detail to them. Because again, the detail probably lends itself to a story. But even if it doesn't right away, the detail is what distinguishes you from anybody else who's writing about the same topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really like that advice. Now, on
Can I give you an example?
Oh, yeah, sure.
When I was teaching writing courses at the University of Michigan, one of the first things I asked them to do was to write about how to tie a shoelace. And they looked at me like I was nuts. We're going to this pretty cool school, and we're juniors, and you're asking us to write about how to tie a shoelace. And so I said, give it some time. And then I saw them, people were taking their shoe off. They were mentally tying it. They were confused. And if you actually think about it, it's really hard to tell somebody how to tie a shoelace because it's something you don't think about anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the more they thought about it and I talked them through, I said, this is why the detail matters. You can't assume that your audience knows how to do this. And if you do assume they know how to do it, again, why are you telling them? So, and some people, were even to bring a bit of, flair to their story about tying a shoelace, but think about something that small and how difficult it is to tell that story well if you assume your audience doesn't know anything about the process.
That is a great example because is simple and cut and dry and it's the same. We all tie our shoes the same way,
Mm-hmm.
but you're going to get an infinite number of different variations on that story.
Yes.
Each person's is going to be unique.
Yes. And because it was, and when the people wrote about their own process, when half the class, had their shoes off, some were tying them on their desks. And eventually everybody saw the humor of it, so that became a whole story in itself. But yeah, it's our own take. And then sometimes it becomes, you remember how you learned how to tie shoes for the first time.
Right.
And that feeling of accomplishment when you finally got it. Then I would listen to 40 stories about tying shoelaces if I saw the difference in each person's story.
Right. But that each story is going to differentiate them in the market and make them their brand unique.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a great exercise. I like that. Over on the Kotaw, excuse me, I got to retrain myself here. The KotawContentMarketing.com blog, you appear to be creating content once a month. That's your publishing schedule. How does a blogger figure out how much content to publish?
It depends on two things. One is what you want your result to be, and the other is allocation of your time. If you are writing your blog and that's your source of income, you're going to want to be writing a lot more often than I do. Mm-hmm. But you're also going to not want to write so often that you're just writing for the sake of writing. You have to find a balance. How many can I be interesting 7 days a week? If you can, write that often. Mm-hmm. If you can be interesting once a week and you can make money doing that, go for it. For me, when I first started writing and the brand was unknown, I wrote about once a week, and then I started writing about once every 2 weeks. For one thing, my blogs take a lot of time to write. Mm-hmm. I don't dash them off. Sometimes I spend 2-3 days writing a blog. I take them that seriously. I can't afford to run a business and spend half of a week writing a blog.
Yeah.
I would love to do it, but I can't afford to do it. I can't, take on clients and just write the blogs that I love writing, every day or every week. So I've had to find a balance.
Okay.
And so you have to think about it in terms of your business. Once people became familiar with the Kotaw brand, once I start getting followers, I started to become worth the wait. And that's when I started to slow down. When people started asking me, when is your next blog coming out? I go, I can relax a little bit now, because now they're going to come when I'm ready to present to them. While you're building your audience, you can't really wait a month because they're going to forget about you. Whether it's for your business that's separate from a blog, or whether you're trying to make money from a blog, you have to have more. But more isn't always better than a little more. Mm-hmm. Really, don't write every day if you're out of ideas, or if you're just tired, or you just think, oh, I read some blog that said, write every day and I'm going to make money. You're not going to make money if people don't care what you read.
Right.
So it's better to find a balance. If you write here's the other thing I would really suggest doing before you publish anything. Give yourself a little library of blogs. Write at least 6, maybe 10. Evergreen, I sort of hate the word, but it's a common word. Blogs are going to have a nice long lifespan. Write them ahead of time, because whatever your schedule is, whether it's once a day, twice a week, once a week, semi-monthly or monthly, there's going to come a time when you just can't do it.
Yeah.
But you need to have them. So have that library in store. And then the other thing I would say in terms of making your blog come out frequently enough and still getting enough audience so that you're going to make money from it, whether it's from acquiring clients, selling products, or getting advertising for your blog, is that don't let a blog only have one life cycle. Bring them back. Social media, you put in a new picture, you put in a new quote, you can reuse those same blogs over and over and over again without doing the one thing I really hate is repurposing. That's maybe a whole new subject for me, but I won't do that. But I will tell people about my blogs over again, because presumably you're building an audience. There's always going to be fresh eyes. And the nice thing is there are also a lot of people who really want to reread your stuff. And to me, that's the most gratifying, is that there are some times when I put a blog out for the new audience, and I'll get people who read it 6 months ago and say, wow, thank you for sharing it again. What a nice feeling that is. That they don't feel pestered or that, I'm just kind of shoving stuff at them. It's like, I wanted to reread this. Thank you for giving it to me again.
Yeah. So, Katherine, what is the objective of your blog, would you say? Is it to establish your authority or what?
It's to establish my authority. It's to establish my brand. People have a good sense of what they're going to hear from me when they come to the blog. They may not know what the subject is going to be, and I don't write exclusively about branding or personal branding or even content marketing. I did for the first year and a half probably, and since then I've written about other things that are important to me as my brand. And I just lost track of the original question.
What's the objective of your blog?
Oh, the objective is for people to know that I write about things I care about. I write about things I know about, that I support what I write about. So yeah, a lot of it is about authority, and a lot of it is about just making an emotional connection. On my blog, in the comments section, people write extraordinarily heartfelt things about themselves. And that's when I really got the audience. When people aren't telling me about me, but they're telling me about themselves.
That is a good indicator, isn't it?
Yes. When people share their stories with me, I know I've got an audience for life.
But not, but they talk about personal stories, not like what they know or.
Oh, no, not what they know. No, it's, you reminded me of, the time I was at my grandma's house when I was 6 years old, or you reminded me of, this adversity I had to overcome, or you reminded me of this. They start to tell their own personal stories, and there's a bond there that's never going to be broken. And just one other comment about terms of monetizing your blog.
Mm-hmm.
And, my blog is not there. I don't take advertisements, so I don't monetize in that way. But if you write a blog that people care about, no matter what it is you're really writing about, those people become the rabid fans that you always want to have. The ones who recommend you to their friends, to their coworkers, to their employers. You can think, I've heard people complain to me, I've written a blog, for a client's behalf, and they'll get a comment from a school teacher, let's say, and they'll say, well, why do I care what a school teacher, has to say about my blog? I want, corporate comments. And I'll say, well, do you know how many people that teacher influences?
Mm-hmm.
If she has 6 classes, all these students, all those parents, if that teacher cares about your company, her reach is hundreds easily.
Right.
And if she affects one of those parents positively, and they buy your product or service, and they tell their community, it's huge outreach.
Yeah.
More so than one corporation being interested in you.
Right. Exactly. Now, Katherine, speaking of, excuse me there. Speaking of personal stories,
Mm-hmm.
someone emailed me recently who wanted to start a blog about her personal experiences as a domestic abuse survivor.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked me how to keep her identity private as a blogger because she was concerned about her ex and even his parents. Now, you happen to be a domestic abuse survivor yourself. In fact,
Yes.
you have a memoir published by HarperCollins called Quicksand, One Woman's Escape from the Husband Who Stalked Her, a true story. And your story has been made into a movie called Run for Your Life that played on the Lifetime Network. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yes. Just briefly, the story. It's the reason. Well, I'll start with the reason why I wrote Quicksand. It was for 2 reasons. One is when I escaped, we literally went into hiding. My ex had hired a hitman, and when I found out about it, and I was given a choice of, you're going to have to kill this guy or disappear. I chose to disappear. So one morning, instead of going to school, we made a detour. We went to a bus stop, a train stop, and we disappeared. So when I left behind, I had a great career going in New York, and a name and prestige and a great resume, and I left all of that behind. So I wrote Quicksand for 2 reasons. One was very commercial reason, was to reestablish my authority, because for a couple of years when I did not know how to work without credentials, I was walking dogs, I was going through dumpsters looking for furniture I could refinish. I was doing a lot of things that I really wasn't well qualified to do. And so it was sort of rebuilding my career by telling my story. Mm-hmm. The other reason I told my story is that I wasn't so unusual, but my story was never told before. Even today, we sort of tend to think that anybody who was in an abusive relationship is probably, dumb, poor, maybe lives in the South. There's that stereotype, and I wanted to crack the stereotype and give women who, like me, didn't think they could ever fall to that kind of relationship because we weren't the stereotype, how strong, educated, the breadwinner in the family, how that person can fall victim to a different kind of abuse and be a voice. for those women who weren't telling their stories. So that's how Quicksand came to be. And I did that under a pseudonym. We were still living in hiding when I wrote the story. And my purpose was not to make a lot of money with the book or for the book to be extraordinarily popular, but to give me credentials.
Okay.
As it turned out, before the book was ever published, I got movie offers.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no. I said, I'm not going to risk it. I could write under a pseudonym. The story I didn't think could be told under a pseudonym, and I said no. I got pursued, over the course of 10 years. Finally, it was about 2.5 years ago when Lifetime said, we wanted the story. Mariska Hargitay wanted to support the story. Her Joyful Heart Foundation was going to, be a part of it. It was going to come out in Domestic Violence Month. And I sat down with my daughters and said, they're asking me, but it's about all of us. This is a time where we could become public if we chose to. What do you want to do? And
Mm-hmm.
we chose to use the movie as an opportunity to become public.
Mm-hmm.
We chose to do it as what I hoped would be a chance for people to have me as a source of help and support if they needed it.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that has been the most extraordinarily gratifying decision about letting the movie play, is that it's now been 2 years. It's played 22 times, I think, in the U.S. It was expected to air twice. It's been in Asia, Europe, and Australia. It's still playing. And every single week, some woman writes to me.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
And and I get, someone wrote to me. I was helping a woman, I won't say where, but it's in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote asking me some advice, and wrote back and forth. And, about a week ago, she won her court case for herself and her kids, and she couldn't wait to tell me. And to be able to do that, just be able to let some woman, who I'll probably never meet, help give her a sense of victory, a sense of just letting her know that she can do this and she's stronger than she thinks. To me, to be part of my personal brand just means the world to me.
Yeah. Your experience is so compelling, and that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because if someone like the lady that emailed me who has experienced domestic abuse and wants to blog about that experience, but has, understandable fears about doing so, what would you tell them?
First of all, to know whether you're in a place where you're okay to take the risk. To really think about that. If you have reason to fear retribution from your ex, think very carefully about how you can write your story safely. If you can't, don't do it. Wait. If you decide that you can do it and you want to do it, go to some extremes to protect your identity.
Like what?
First of all, besides just doing, the who is with the website domain, which people can still find, get a lawyer to buy your domain up for you, a trusted friend who your ex doesn't know if you don't want to spend the money on a lawyer. Separate yourself from the domain.
Or also they can, their hosting service may provide domain
That's
privacy.
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Go to some links to make sure that the domain is private. And then make sure, first of all, that when you write when you are calm and clear-headed, because if you're writing when you're upset or you're feeling traumatized or, you're reliving some of your experiences, it's going to be really hard to change some of the details to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, before I wrote Quicksand, I sort of created a storyline for myself so that I knew what things I could change that would protect me, but that wouldn't falsify my story. So you want to think about, if you have kids, I gave each of my daughters different names. And sometimes I'd have to go back and look them up before I wrote a new chapter. But, since I was writing a book and not a blog, nothing became public till I double checked. But so you need to sort of take an extra time to sort of fact check yourself. If you currently live in Missouri, maybe you want to place yourself in California, but that means you have to do some studying about California to make the story fit. So you have to create a backstory in order to give yourself protection.
Okay.
Because if you're talking about, you're in what, St. Louis?
In the area, yeah.
Okay, so if, let's say, and if you were the woman writing about, her situation, and she's from St. Louis or some city elsewhere, and you're constantly referencing, a local diner, your place where you buy shoes, and all these different things come up, it can put you in danger.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to write about your experience, you have to fictionalize it enough to protect yourself.
Right. Okay. Man, if someone wants to get a copy of your book, how do they do that?
They can go to Amazon. It's the best place to buy it, and there's one seller who has new books, and it helps support domestic violence, so I'd recommend looking for the new. I think the new books on that site are cheaper than some of the used copies, but yeah, that's the place to go.
Okay. I will link to that in the show notes.
Thank you.
Sure. And is the Lifetime movie available still?
It was supposed to come out on DVD 2 years ago, and they still haven't made it yet because they're playing it. But it still does show. It comes out about every 2 months now, I think, on Lifetime. And as often as I can, I don't catch every one of the showings, but I usually post it on Facebook. So if anybody were interested, they could follow me on Facebook, or they could just type Run for Your Life in their TV guide and see when it comes up. Yeah, it still plays fairly often.
We'll go ahead and ask you this right now, since you brought it up. How can people follow you online?
If you put in Katherine Kotaw in the search engine, you'll see that I'm on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, Google Plus still, and you can, or go to Kotaw.com. But if you just remember that Kotaw is Kotaw, I'm pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Well, we're coming down to the last question. This has been a great discussion. Love having you on the show. It's time for the final question that I ask each guest, and I want to ask you this. Katherine, how has blogging changed your life?
It has created an immediacy to my writing that I never ever had before. And it's extraordinarily rewarding to really hear from people and to know how my writing affects them. When I wrote for newspapers, I wrote for magazines, and I've written books, you don't hear in real time, and sometimes you never really hear how your words impact someone. With a blog, sometimes minutes after you hit publish, somebody's there telling you, this means something to me. It made me laugh, it made me cry, it made me remember something about an experience I had. It's drawn me closer to my audience than I ever experienced in all my life, and I've been writing professionally since I was 10.
Yeah.
And that's meaningful to me. And so that has been the biggest change. And it's also, in terms of in a professional standpoint, it's really given me a sense of my audience and who I'm writing to and how to affect them. I really pay attention to the comments I get, the sort of, I caught comments more than I caught, shares. Although one particular share of Kotaw, I just went viral, and I still don't quite know why, but it's nice. But I really count the comments because those are where relationships are made. And to me, blogging is all about developing relationships, and that's how I grow my business.
Yeah, it's a real privilege, and I'm so grateful as a writer to have that connection with the audience that, F. Scott Fitzgerald didn't get to experience that.
That's right. Most writers, and you sometimes wonder, how can writers be so depressed and suicidal and, things are not great? They never got any feedback,
Yeah, right.
They never got to experience what you and I get to hear in real time, and it's just incredible.
That is a great point. That is so true. Yeah, they and that's why they drank and took drugs.
That's right. Because just quickly about, writing a book, it can take you, a year, sometimes longer to write it. It takes another year to publish. And then it just goes off into this, world of bookstores, and there were no online, none of that. You really didn't know how people were affected,
Right.
Now they're, their books are, students are reading them and they're assigned courses and people quote them all the time, but they weren't around to hear any of it.
Right.
But, bloggers are, and it's an incredible blessing. And, if you wrote a blog for no other reason than that, than to make those connections, it's worth every ounce of effort you put into each blog.
Yeah, I'm sure Hemingway and Gertrude Stein in that era, they probably got a few letters, here and there.
Of course.
But most of, a lot of their feedback was their editors, and it was very serious and critical, and, I can see why they might be a little depressed.
Yes. Yes, that they put so much effort into it and had, except for counting book sales, really no idea of how they affected people.
It's amazing to even try to put yourself in their shoes. There was no internet. Wow.
I know.
Yeah, it was a very quiet time. Much more serene. Well, Katherine, it's been a real pleasure having you on the Blog Chronicles today.
Thank you. It's been a great honor.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Blog Chronicles. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe on YouTube or iTunes and leave a rating or review to help other bloggers find us. If you want to chat, look me up on Twitter @MattLoomis. So who is going to be my next guest on the Blog Chronicles? We're going to meet up with a high school teacher who has created a personal branding class that he now teaches in a private high school. He is very passionate about what he teaches and strongly believes his personal branding curriculum should be taught to teens around the country. We'll ask him why and how he plans to reach those big dreams on the next episode. So until next time, keep on blogging.